All right, welcome back to another episode of Ghost Host Kitchen. I'm Sean, and this is
Heather.
And tonight we are making a beefy mac.
Beefy mac.
A creamy beefy mac. That's what we're making. And of course, you got to have the mac in there, and that starts with cooking your macaroni. Let's get started with this pot of water. We're going to boil that up, and we are going to put some olive oil and salt into our water.
I've seen different food blogs and things where people go back and forth as to whether or not the olive oil actually helps the water not to boil over, or whether it helps to enrich the flavor of the pasta. Not sure what I think, I just know that I've always done it.
Tell us what you think in the comments. Do you use olive oil in your water or not? I think everybody can agree though that you gotta salt the water.
You do.
While that water gets up to temperature, we're gonna just slide that to another burner and get ready for cooking the beef part of our creamy beef and mac. Of course, we're gonna start with 1 pound of hamburger. Just drop that in and let it start frying. Now you're also gonna wanna break this up. So we have this handy dandy tool. What would you call this tool?
A spoon strainer. I don't know exactly what you call it, but it acts as a spoon. It acts as basically a tool that breaks up meat like that. And if you see the little holes, you can also strain juices off of the meat when you scoop it out. So it's like a multi-purpose tool.
And the important thing is it's silicone. It will not scratch your non-stick surfaces.
And it cleans up very easily too, right in the dishwasher.
Absolutely, we love any tool that will go straight into the dishwasher. And through the magic of television, our ground beef is now cooked.
You could, if you wanted to, substitute ground turkey instead of ground beef.
Or ground chicken.
Or ground chicken. Now, we do not like ground turkey at all, so you're not ever going to see us use it in a recipe, but there are people that swear by it, and if that's what works for you and your family, then by all means do what works, but here we're always going to be using ground beef.
In the meantime, our water is now boiling, so we are just going to throw in our macaroni. These are just plain old elbow macaroni. This is plain old elbow macaroni. Nothing special, but if you wanted, you could use any kind of shaped pasta. Some of them will hold sauce better than others. We just went with tried and true traditional right here.
Now, one thing I will say is that I am more of a traditionalist where macaroni comes in. If it's a macaroni dish, I like to use elbows. You prefer corkscrews.
I prefer any kind of pasta that will hold a sauce and that will save me some money. So if I got a quarter of a box of one and half a box of another, I'll throw them both in.
And it drives me crazy.
Doesn't even bother me if one's wheat and one's not.
It bothers me.
So we're just gonna let that come to a boil, do its macaroni cooking thing. Let's get on with our sauce. We're gonna use the exact same pan that we cooked our hamburger in. We don't see any need to dirty another pan. I'm sure you don't either. We start though by putting a little bit of oil in there, and then we will throw a pat of butter. So we're just gonna let that melt, and we will add our next ingredient.
If my mother is watching, no, I was not cooking with dirty dishes. We were using a dish that we had just used to make another part of this delicious meal.
All right, so to that butter and oil, we're gonna add a little bit of onion, and you're gonna wanna saute those until they get a little bit soft.
Now you could also use minced onion here. If you're like me, you prefer the minced onion that you can buy at the grocery stores and things like that, and it saves you a whole lot of tears and your hands smelling like onion for days. No matter what you do, you sometimes can't get that onion smell off.
That being said,
Sean is always going to use fresh cut onions. I'm always going to go for the minced onion because it just eliminates a whole lot of effort.
Now I will say, if you do use the minced onion, that's fine, but you don't want to put it in at this point in the recipe. You want to put it in a little bit later.
And when there's some sort of liquid there.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to burn them.
All right, to that onion and that butter, we're going to add some garlic, and we're just going to let those saute. It's going to make your kitchen smell just fabulous. Once your onion and garlic have softened up some, you're going to add in 1 can of tomato sauce. Just pour it in. We're actually making our own tomato sauce, if you will. We're going to add all of their own spices to it. So you don't need a jarred sauce, just a plain can of tomato sauce. Pour it in on top of those onions and garlic. Let it heat up. As you can see, it's got a nice little fry going on right there around the edges of the pan.
You don't want to let that go too long, because what you don't want to do is burn your tomato sauce. That would be bad.
Yeah, it's very unpleasant to burn your tomato sauce.
and then you've ruined dinner and you have to start all over. And who wants that?
Now, if your tomato sauce has got a little boil on it, start adding in your spices. Basically your Italian spices, your thyme, your oregano, stuff like that. Check the recipe. We're going to have it up there when we'll list out all the spices that we threw into this.
Or you could just use Italian seasoning, since it already has most of those flavors already combined into one container.
Either way, you're going to get a just wonderful smelling and a wonderful tasting sauce. Your sauce should also be thickening up a little bit as some of that liquid cooks out of it. And once your tomato sauce is cooked down, it's time to add your heavy cream. So just put your heavy cream in there and stir it all together. This is one of those situations where I would opt for the heavy cream. I wouldn't use milk.
I wouldn't either.
Your sauce would be way too thin, and yeah, just don't. Go ahead, opt for the heavy cream.
Well, this is what's going to help it really stick to the pasta instead of just kind of dripping down and winding up in a puddle in the bottom of your bowl. This time I do agree. Make sure you use the heavy cream.
You're going to want to bring that back up to a boil after you get it all incorporated there. Of course, you want to give this sauce a little extra body, so it's time to throw some cheese in there. We are using cheddar, so just throw that in there and then stir it in, let it melt. This is going to thicken your sauce up some. It's going to be another element to add another layer of flavor and also help it stick to that pasta some more.
You could add mushrooms if you want to. If you don't like mushrooms or you don't think it goes with this, then don't add them. But if you wanted to try it, give it a whirl. See what happens.
Now, I do want to say, as you add this cheese in, just don't dump it all in at once. Put a little bit in, let it melt. Put a little bit more in, let it melt. That way it kind of all gets in there, all gets absorbed and melted together. You don't form lumps and things like that. But as you can see, as we do this, the sauce really gets smooth looking and very creamy looking. All right, once that sauce is all smooth, you can set that aside for a moment, and you're going to bring your mac back in. Now, off camera, we pulled this, drained it, and now we're going to add our beef back to it. To that, pour in your sauce. Just pour it right over top of it. Get all of it, just clean that pan out. You can't have too much sauce in this situation.
Do not leave sauce behind.
And then grab your spoon and start stirring it all together. You know, if it weren't for the mac needing to be cooked separately, you could probably almost do this as a one-pot meal. But either way, in the end, mix it all together right there in that one pot. Serve from that pot, and your family is going to love this. All right, so that's creamy beef and mac. We're gonna serve this out. We got our dishes here, one for me, one for her, and that's gonna be dinner for tonight. It is an awesome dinner, and you want to pair this with a nice bread, something you can really sop up that sauce with. So what are we thinking that we should have the people watch next?
I think if I were them, I would want to watch our Irish soda bread recipe.
There you go. Do your carb overload. Watch this Irish soda bread recipe next, and you'll know how to make it for any soup or stew you have going forward. That's it for us. We're out of here. We'll see you next time with more recipes as easy as 1, 2, 3.